So today on our Tech for Business podcast, we're joined by Kyle, our CEO and president, Rob, our director of services, and Jake, our assistant director of services. So welcome. Thank you guys for making time and coming here today. So we're talking tech trends of 2024, but I'd actually like to start a year ago. We had a similar podcast with all three of you on talking tech trends of 2023. So I'd like to start with what we discussed then, which was a lot of cloud movement to the cloud, assessing your infrastructure and what you have. AI, we talked a lot about that, and integration. We talked a little bit about augmented reality. We spoke a little bit about. So my first question is that true? Is that what we saw in 2023? And what else would you add to that list now at the end of that year?
I think a lot of what we talked about last year definitely gained traction. We saw a lot of movement in those areas. Were they necessarily the end all be all of the technology 2023? I think cloud just continues to grow. I think we're seeing just a constant migration towards cloud, and I think that's going to be something that's with us for a number of years. Augmented reality, I think we've been talking about that for a few years, and even before this, I was mentioning, I think this might be the year we start to see it really take hold in more of a business focus. I think it shows a lot of promise, but we didn't really see a huge uptake in it in the business world in 2023. So that would be maybe a little bit of a miss on our conversation from last year. And then I think the last thing from my point of view really is probably around things that maybe we didn't talk about last year, that for us as a support entity really came down to some of our tools that we thought were going to really be kind of our go-to in 2023 that we found maybe didn't hit the mark. And so we had to make some changes. And so I think from the support standpoint of and business and supporting our customers, we found some surprises in 2023 that we're making some changes here in 2024.
For sure.
Yeah, I mean, I would, on the AI, I think as we approach the end of the year, we were seeing, and we have continued to see, the integration of AI has shown up in the product. So I wouldn't call that a miss. I think it was early on it, but it definitely was manifesting itself into the product sets that we use and see. We did see the launch of the Microsoft Copilot into the enterprise space. It's not in our sides on it. That has definitely shown up. I think, a lot of different business uses in marketing and other sides with products like Copy.ai. Certainly people using the Chat GPT, 4 and the other integrations, the Bing enterprise roll outside of the Chat GPT. All that stuff really started to become, exposed and utilized within different business aspect sides of it. So that definitely did, certainly in Q4 towards the end of the year, really started to show up. And with the Copilot launch going more general availability side of that, I think, there's definitely going to be a lot of AI side in 2024. There's just no way that's not going to be manifested itself in a lot of different ways. I do think there's going to be a lot of discussions around, the risk components of it, certainly the data protections, and a lot of, the cybersecurity and governance groups are going to have a lot of discussions about what that looks like, what it's touching, what's the security of that data set. My understanding is that has already shown its head in the Copilot with the enterprise groups quite a bit, because they are surprised at how much it is transversing within their data sets. So I think a lot of ring fencing and a lot of different things are going to start showing in there, but super excited for what that promise will come. I mean, I think AI showing itself, all the expert sides of it, and I would agree with this statement side of it, is the augmentative use of AI to the people, where it's leveraging and allowing people productivity to be enhanced by using AI as an assistant into it, I think is deserves a lot of promise. The doom and gloom of it replacing a lot of workforce side of it, why at some points along the line that certainly is likely to happen in certain areas. It is that augmentative side of it that's going to definitely produce a lot of benefit. We've already seen that in some areas already. And I think that's why the Microsoft Copilot stuff is pretty exciting, because a lot of things that do take a lot of time, and just some of the stuff you've seen in even Teams, from transcription and note taking and other stuff. It's pretty incredible. I mean, it is a huge time saver. So super excited for that. Augmented reality, Apple's got their headset coming out February 1st or early February is announced side of that shipping side of it. So it's going to be interesting. I think there's more stuff definitely showing up in that space. Still early on in that side. I think the general business use in those things is still a few years outside as that starts to gain more traction, but that may couple with the AI pretty closely as far as where that evolves.
Yeah,
Sure.
I was surprised to see how much of the AI use in a workplace was driven by the end user as opposed to an administrative or IT driving that within the workplace. It's been more, the end user looking for these tool sets to help them throughout the day, right? Take notes within their meetings and compose better structure to meeting notes and things like that they're doing within that. So that was a bit of a surprise for me, and I expected a little bit more driving force from the top down to push these down to the end users and kind of work the opposite way.
Which is where the governance and concern comes in.
Yeah. Oh, man.
I do have the latest Windows 11 23H2 build on my computer, and it does come with Copilot built into the operating system now. So on my taskbar, I have a Copilot icon where I can actually set my conversation style more creative, more balanced, more precise, help kind of tune it a little bit so that as I utilize it, it kind of learns my style. I also remember a specific scenario in late 2023 where Kyle sent out a really, really nice email to the company. And as I'm reading through that email, it just struck me a little bit as just not quite Kyle. And I emailed him half joking. I said, "Hey, Kyle, how much did you use AI to help wordsmith this?" He says, "A little bit." And I thought it was kind of telling a little bit. It's like I could tell it, it was really nice. It enhanced the email. I thought I made a really great email out of it, but it wasn't quite Kyle's general conversational style. You could tell it had been modified a little bit, like he had somebody proof it. And that's where the AI can really kind of come in and help just enhance and help smooth out some of the rough edges of your conversations and your communications.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly the beauty of it, because you can communicate with it the essence of what you want to convey. And to say, these are the key points, this is how I want to convey them. And it gives you, and you can even, train it into the tone and style that you want it to express, and it becomes aware of who you are, what your role is, what the audience is that you're trying to talk to. So you are educating it to that level side of it. But, in the past, I used to use our marketing team to say, "Hey, proof this for me."
Yeah.
And make sure, correct all my typos and all the other stuff on it. Because again, you don't want to send something just as a professional side when you're communicating to the wide audience side with it. So it's just fantastic for that, because it does, convey a lot of the stuff to get, but it does still involve, your input side of it. It's taking the old, it is taking the notes of what you want to say, but giving you the best way to say it, which is just great. And I think just being able to automatically adjust that side, I think is great. I've used Grammarly for a long time. I mean, that was kind of an early introduction to that, to kind of tell you to kind of change some words or remove extra, I always had a tendency to add extra words, don't need to be there, so it's always telling me to strike this out because it's really not needed and all that other kind of stuff. And this just kind of really brings it up another level. Excited to see that into Excel and stuff like that to help me figure out a lot of the things in Excel. I just have no clue, and it'll save me a lot of YouTube watching. I have to figure it out. I'm looking forward to stuff like that. So, yeah, you can definitely see the enhancements, and that's just kind of scratching the surface of some of the obvious stuff. You get into, I think, within the application set, and you get into the data, complexities of where all the data sits in multiple data silos, and you start having AI to help digest complex data sets and get information for you that can help you make business decisions versus you having to digest all that information yourself or find that. I think is going to be incredible, just because it never sleeps. It's 24/7. It can look at so many millions of data sets to allow you to be able to narrow things down and even start to provide some suggestions on areas you're looking at, even on, here's an area where you are less profitable. Here's an area where you have inefficiencies based on these metric sides of it versus a person having to sit there and look at an Excel spreadsheet to find that same conclusion. It can bring it to your attention immediately. That's going to be very, very powerful, and it saves a lot of time. And that's going to be exciting. And those things are already, coming around. They're starting to show up. You got Azure AI for that reason, and those other sets. I think they're co-pilot into the Power BI and those sides on it, where you just present, again, these data sets from different silos, and it automatically is able to determine key metrics for you in areas that there are areas to improve upon. I think will be great for decision makers and in managers and businesses in general. I think it's going to be super powerful.
Yeah. It's that automation, which we talked about before, just automating those less complex parts of your job and making your job a little bit easier. So we talked a lot about AI. We talked a lot about cloud. I'm going to throw this to Jake. What are you seeing in 2024? Are we building upon those things? Are there new things coming? What are you sort of seeing from your side of the house that's going to be coming up?
Yeah, I think a lot of our customers have taken a strong hold within a Microsoft or a Google platform, right, in some sort of cloud space. Now they're really building upon that footprint and utilizing third-party utilities that introduce these sorts of AI integrations to be able to do these additional things within that capacity. And then we're also seeing, a continued migration of on-premises services to the cloud as we continue to go. And, eventually that on-premises footprint is going to be pretty minimal. For some, it's not to that point yet. And some are very far, into that kind of maturity model of the cloud as they are. So I think just to continue build out of where they're at within that cloud space and utilizing other third-party utilities to better capitalize on their use up there.
So I'd like to narrow this conversation a little bit because it's January, it's Q1. There are a lot of people sitting down for their planning meetings, their budget meetings, sort of what is coming for them. So speaking specifically about businesses, what should be on those agendas when it comes to technology? What should they really be planning for or looking at? Is it the cloud conversation again? Is it AI, or is there something else that businesses should be looking at when it comes to technology?
I can chime in to just kind of start it. There's certainly all those areas are applicable side of it. One area we haven't talked about is obviously the cybersecurity and risk reduction side of it. It is still a big part of the technology discussion on how you continue to reduce risk and what you're doing to protect your organization side of those. Even with the shift to the cloud and doing those other sides of it, introduces more questions. We talked briefly about bringing AI. Cybersecurity is going to have some concerns.
Oh, yeah.
Data protection and governance is going to have some concerns. So all these come into play in those conversations. So the overall discussion of understanding the organization's risk tolerance and their risk avoidance or reduction methods that they can do. One key area that really started to be talked about a lot in the 2023, and it's definitely going to carry into this year's side, is that term zero trust started to come up a lot more. If you kind of look at the life cycle of the cybersecurity side of it, for a number of years now, we've been talking MFA, EDR. Prior to that, it was, patching and vulnerability scans and those other sides of those. Now you're getting into a maturity model where you start to understand and you need to have better control on just the application footprints of themselves within it, not only from, supply chain vulnerabilities within trusted apps, that they have malicious malware inside a trusted application is a threat. You can put AI potentially into that side of it, that the AI is doing something malicious within your environment, but you considered it trusted because it was from Microsoft. There's a lot of those things. So what you need to start bringing in then is ring fencing and application lockdowns to say, just because an application is on a device within my network does not give it full access to either other applications within my devices or my network in general, or the internet altogether. I do not want an application to be able to, on its own, exfiltrate data that I'm not aware of. All these controls start to be things to be, looked at to say, do I understand it? And when you're in a cloud and you're in a high mobility environment, you have devices all over the world potentially, and you can't rely on a firewall now to necessarily say that side of it. So you need to be able to look at each device and have that aggregated into some overall, governance and control to say, regardless of what the device is, regardless what type of device it is, I need to know that I have protections in place, and I have accountability, and I have logging, and I have the ability to limit, all the way down to, trusted application sets. And it's, I think organizations, as they mature through that side of it, it becomes the conversation that it is, you can no longer just afford to inherently trust everything. Hence the term zero trust. I mean, you basically, you limit it down to what they need to do their job, and that's where it's at.
Yeah. And I think we're going to talk a lot about zero trust this year, and I'll make sure there's some links in the description for people who have no idea what that is. But Rob, from your services side, what do you think those business conversations around technology, the planning, kind of what's coming down the road in 2024 from your point of view?
Yeah, I think from our point of view, coming down the road, when it comes to the service and support of our customers, how we can utilize some of these emerging technologies, and again, as a perfect example, where AI can delve into our ticket history for a customer, can pull up relevant information to a new ticket to say, hey, here's how the same issue has come up in the past and how it's been solved. It's going to allow us to gain efficiency to solve problems faster for customers, which is going to help keep the customers up and running and productive in their business, right? So that's our ultimate goal, is to make sure our customers are successful. And if we can utilize these emerging technologies to better support them, then that's going to provide an intrinsic value to the customer as we move forward here.
Is there anything, Jake, that you would add or you see that's different than what's already been shared?
Yeah, I mean, looking forward to the year for our customers, we still have to keep in mind a lot of our customers are still going to have an on-premises environment for some of their workplace. That hybrid type of structure has been doing really well for a lot of the environments that I've worked in. The employees still like to come on site. And so I want to make sure customers are still putting focus on their on-premises environment as well as that equipment that's going remote and working hybrid. So we just have to take that into consideration too, as we're upgrading that equipment, keeping those things patched and up to date, and planning hardware replacements in that model for as long as that office location is going to still be in use.
So last year when we had this same podcast, we had a broader question of what other trends do we see coming, which is where the augmented reality conversation came up. So I'm going to pose that, and then you can kind of share anything else you'd like to as we wrap up here. Stepping out of the business world, what are technology trends that are sort of coming down the road for just people in general?
Well, that's a good question.
I know.
I'm still waiting on the augmentative stuff. It's still there. I don't think that's, like I said, we didn't get as much on that last year.
It's coming.
I continue to see incremental improvements in the augmented reality, the types of headsets, the power that they have, the abilities they have. I mean, there's I think a large portion of the work population that has started to realize just how disconnected they've become from their coworkers and their work environments. Hybrid's great, it's convenient, but it loses something in that interpersonal communication and relationship that you have with your coworkers. I think that's an opportunity for augmented reality to help bridge that gap, to get us back into a little bit more of that sense of one-on-one conversations. And you can do that through a flat screen, but having that more in-depth virtual world around you through an augmented reality goggles where you can share information. You can kind of the futuristic idea that you can kind of swipe that information up to a corner over here and share it with your coworker. You can see them in more of a like you're standing there in the conference room talking type of view. I don't know if 2024 is going to bring us quite to that point, but I think we're making progress moving that direction. And I think that's an exciting area of future technology where we're going to be able to work with. We now have employees in over 20 states, and having the ability to actually meet with them and feel like you're meeting a little bit more in person rather than just face-to-face time on a screen, I think is an opportunity for us to really build a better team.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I do think Apple's foray into this with their release site is significant statement. I think you go back to the iPhone and the other sides on it. When a company like that gets into it, you're going to see some serious technology driving on that. I mean, there's going to be, your Samsungs and Google alternatives and other things are going to show on those things. Certainly, Meta's been involved on that side of it. And eventually, Microsoft's definitely going to come into those with, as Rob was stating, I think Teams rooms that are utilizing those, that becomes more technology cost effective to do so, to create those 3D meetings where you are, more projecting the person into a room versus a flat screen. I think it's only a matter of time that's coming. But it's a start. I mean, these are definitely, it is definitely starting. I think the next 5 years is going to be very, very interesting on that, as that starts to become more invested into and the costs start to come down. But it's definitely a start. It's going to be expensive in the beginning. There'll be a select few groups that'll be able to afford it. But like everything else in our technology space, it'll get there.
Yeah.
Starting to see the big groups come on is step one.
Yeah.
Yeah. It'll be awesome.
Definitely. Kind of that reconnection, using that technology to sort of reconnect with people and businesses. I'm throw this just because I'm curious, because Jake mentioned that hybrid work, and then we're talking about this augmented reality. Jake, do you think that hybrid workplace will go away, let's say 5 years down the road, if augmented reality really does kind of boom? Do you think we're moving away from that hybrid?
Yeah, I think in certain, sectors, we definitely would see that. There's obviously manufacturing companies, things like that, that's still going to require that on-premise presence. But yeah, it's interesting how it'll unfold, right? There's still a human nature of wanting to see people and be together with people that we'll just have to figure out how that goes. I still enjoy going to the office and seeing people face to face. I can't replace that maybe necessarily with a headset. So I don't know. Yeah. I'm a little more old school in that approach, I think. But yeah, we'll see how it plays out.
Gonna laugh when we have the little bot walking down the hall that has the projection of Rob shaking hands and waving people to walk down the hall saying good morning, and he's sitting at home in his office.
I would be surprised. I mean, to completely replace that. Again, I think it's more of an enabler, to allow you to be able to do these things, but not saying that there's no need to have the in-person stuff, because I think, humans are social creatures. I think, there needs to be that, time together, but geographically, and other scenarios, there's just a lot of ways that it allows for, work to continue regardless of, life situations or the need to be in geographically somewhere else, but be able to circle in and have an office where you can physically meet face to face. But, do you need as big a corporate office? Probably not. So I think that space gets reevaluated as to, into more collaborative spaces rather than putting people into, cubes that they don't see each other and they're just staring at a cube wall, or they're staring at an office wall side of that they're more, embracing of the reason people are there is to be face to face and see those sides. When you need to be heads down, you can do that. I mean, you really don't need to be there if you're just going to stare at a wall behind a screen. So, I think it's just reevaluations of those space and the uses sides, but I don't see it going away. I think it's just reevaluating what they're doing. I was in downtown Minneapolis yesterday, and it's quiet. I mean, it's 100% happening. I mean, you can tell there is not nearly as many people there as there was pre, 2020. You can see it on the roads. You can see it through the parking lots when you drive by large campuses. I know the 3M campus is close to our office here. That is very, very desolate. I mean, there's not nearly the car volume in those parking lot sides. So it's definitely, you can definitely see they've embraced where they have people working from home and allow them to do it. But
seems to be an unwritten rule of Mondays and Fridays are remote work for downtown.
Yeah, that's very much the case.
Yeah.
I go downtown on Wednesdays and the parking garage, all 3 levels are full. I come back on a Monday and it's like crickets chirping around there. So.
Yeah. It's like, where is everybody?
Yeah.
That was a Monday. You're probably exactly right.
I was down there yesterday too, and I was like one of the 4 cars left on the level when I left at 3 in the afternoon.
It was quiet down there yesterday, but it's definitely changed. I mean, you can definitely feel that, but it's not going away. I think I think Rob said it, maybe it was Jake said it earlier. I mean, you're definitely seeing people more and more, I think, coming in. We've seen that in our place. Billy, people want to, they want to get out of their house. They want to get, in and see their coworkers, but it's not, 40 hours a week anymore. I think they like the flexibility of both. And I think that's what technology should do. I think it should, enable you to do more. I think telehealth and those other things, I think is great. I think technology and this augmentative side of it, when you can have experts be able to deliver their expertise regardless of geographic location and allow, people to access those services, that's fantastic. Now we're improving people's lives through the use of that technology to do that. I mean, there's a lot of positives to that, and it allows people to spend time with their families, it allows people to do other things without, losing valuable time in a windshield, sitting in traffic and all the other stuff. I mean, so there's a lot of positives there too, but they're both good.
Yeah. And the opportunity for expansion in your company. Like we said, we now have, employees all over. So
yeah,
that's great.
Yeah, it's given us access to, a lot more, talent to bring in to help our customer sides than when we were limited in our geographic scope of where we could find talent. So it's allowed us to improve our level of services and product and bring in some great people to our team. And again, very appreciative of that ability side of it, and their ability to do their job is identical to ours in the main office. There's no difference. So really, really thankful for that technical capability.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Kyle, Rob, and Jake, for joining us today. It sounds like 2024 is going to be have some exciting things coming. If you enjoyed this podcast, please like and subscribe. If you have a question, a topic, or a trend that you'd like us to discuss, reach out to us at info@cit-net.com or head out to our website, cit-net.com/podcast. We'll be back next week. We're going to talk cybersecurity in 2024. Thanks.